Okay, let me go to some questions. Do you believe the U.S. Supreme Court will ever declare the death penalty unconstitutional in all cases? What do you believe must happen in the country for this to happen?
Well, I can answer it quickly.
No.
This U.S. Supreme Court ain't going to declare the death penalty unconstitutional in all cases.
This court may enhance the death penalty.
For Scott, of the Governor's Commission's 85 reforms, which are the most important that the legislature has declined to address?
Well, certainly the one that I was most concerned about that was not enacted was our recommendation that there be a statewide review panel that would pass on the death penalty elections by local prosecutors. We have 102 different state's attorneys in this state from 102 different localities, some rural, some urban, obviously, some where the majority of citizens come out of one faith tradition or another. But all of the people who get executed in the name of the state of Illinois. And some prosecutors are very reluctant to seek capital punishment. Some border on the bloodthirsty. And it seemed to all of us on the commission that it would make sense that uniform standards be imposed and that there be a body that looks over the election of capital punishment as the appropriate punishment in a case and says, that one really doesn't fit. That is not proportionate with other death penalty cases.
The prosecutors are loath to give up their authority.
And I couldn't figure that out because I thought, I know that everybody who exercises that power does it with a sense of the weight of the decision that he or she is making. And I thought there was a chance they would welcome the opportunity to have the ultimate responsibility taken away from them. But no, I think they just feel that it depreciates the authority of their office and they don't want to do it.
Well, what I heard repeatedly was we need to reflect the sensibilities of our communities, and the sensibilities in Effingham may be different from the sensibilities in Chicago.
Well, again, going back to what I said about capital punishment, do you really think that you've got a rational system where death depends on where you committed the crime? Nothing about the criminal, nothing about the crime itself, but just the locality where it was committed. That should be the important variable. Is that a rational system? That you get... you're more likely to get the death penalty in Effingham than you are in Cook County. Is that a rational system?
We'll start with you, John, on this. Who are you rooting for in the World Series, the Rockies or the Red Sox, and are both states opposed to the death penalty?
No, both states are not opposed. Colorado has a death penalty. Massachusetts does not. I always pull for the National League. However, that's because I'm a Cardinal fan. Sorry. My grandfather was a Cardinal fan. My dad was a Cardinal fan. I'm a Cardinal fan. And one thing I would love to do one of these days, I've never been to Wrigley Field, and I'm going to wait a little bit longer because I would love to go to Wrigley Field. I read an essay Scott wrote one time about Wrigley Field, and I want to go to Wrigley Field with Scott to watch a World Series game. Or not, maybe before then.
The last person I heard say that he wanted to go to a World Series game with me was my father, and he died wishing for that. So, like generations of Cub fans before him.
Do you believe the recent public attention on false confessions will have an effect on public opinion toward the death penalty?
Well, when people ask me what's wrong with the system, there are lots of things. There are resource problems. But I am frank to admit that one of the biggest problems is the time-honored wisdom that's been passed along in the law. There is a hearsay exception for statements against penal interest. In other words, it's regarded as inherently reliable. Even an out-of-court declaration that's made against penal interest can be admitted in every case, because the law has always assumed that nobody would say something that's likely to put them away if it weren't true. And guess what? The law, with its generations of received wisdom, is wrong. It's wrong. When you take a person with a 77 IQ and interrogate him for 17 hours and tell him he flunked a lie detector when he didn't, guess what? Guess what can happen? And that was a revelation to me. I never believed during the years that I was a prosecutor that anybody would confess to a crime that he didn't commit, and now I know better. It can happen, and it does.
Was that a revelation to you as well in The Innocent Man and researching that?
The false confession issue is really hard to grapple with, because when most jurors and most people cannot believe that someone would confess to a terrible crime if they didn't do it. And the truth is, it happens all the time for a variety of reasons, most of which have to do with the techniques used in interrogation. And some are brutal, some are subtle, some are unbelievable. But it's just a fact that it's been proven many times. People will confess under stress. Look at what our military does. Look at what some of the intelligence organizations around the world can do. Some of the really good ones. It's usually not, nowadays, it's not physical abuse. But you can get in a room with a seasoned interrogator, investigator, cop, and you have no lawyer, you have no friend, you're in a dark room, you've been there for hours, and it's amazing what can come out of that. And so that was a revelation when I researched the book and wrote the book, because as a lawyer, again, going back to my own experience, I never saw that. Again, this doesn't happen in most places. Most cops don't do things like that. Most prosecutors don't put on a snitch from the jail that the prosecutor knows is lying. Most prosecutors don't do that. Most prosecutions are handled in a straight up ethical way. But there are enough of them that are not to put a lot of innocent people away. And again, I forgot what the question was, but that was a pretty good answer. I mean, I was on a roll there for a while.